a podcast with Chris, and then you had your launch, and so many other things this week. It's been an eventful week for you, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I have one more thing next week, another podcast next week, Torque Magazine,
Oh,
and after
great.
that, I don't have one till November. Another one later with somebody, but
We are
yeah, I've
live
been
on.
kind of.
Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
all right, awesome. Let's get started then. I mean, we're still getting requests. Currently, we are 11 right now. Good to go?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Srijit, and I lead the services business at Wisdom. And today, I'm really excited, and because this is the first time we are doing a webinar series on WooCommerce. So, welcome to the show. And without wasting much more time, let me introduce our guest, Bob Dunn, as most of us know him as Bob WP, is joining us today from California. And we all know him and love him as the host of the popular podcast, Do the Woo. Among other things, today we'll be talking about building successful businesses with WooCommerce, maybe the scope of e-commerce in 2021, his new Do the Woo podcast for Woo builders, and much more. So, am I audible? I guess, Bob. Hello, Bob. Can you hear me? I think we have got a connection problem with Bob. Am I audible?
Oh, I'm back. I had to switch earpods. Just don't. I'm really sorry.
All right,
Earpods.
no problem, no problem, no problem. I was just telling the guys that this session is going to be a 40 to 45-minute session where the last 15 minutes will be answering your questions. So if you like, you can drop in your questions into the chat box and we'll take it up towards the end. Okay. So once again, welcome to the show, Bob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good now that I can hear you. That's a key there to one of these kind of events is to be able to hear what people are saying. So I'm doing really good. Thanks.
And then how are you holding up these days during this COVID pandemic going through?
It's interesting because, well, I guess the first thing is, I'm in the demographic of, where it's got to be tense. So I got to be careful. But lifestyle wise, somebody's asked me this before, like, has it changed for you? I've been working out of my home for 25 years. So
Right.
I'm used to it. And we don't have kids anymore. We don't have I can feel for all the people that have all these challenges. It's like, suddenly having to work from home and stuff. Dealing with kids at home. Yeah, it's unreal. For me, it's just that extra precaution and a little bit of fear, scariness when you go out, just
Right.
worrying about that. But we don't go out a lot. We don't do things. So we haven't had to change the way we do things so much. So I'm content sitting here talking on the microphone in my office. And but yeah, it's been interesting.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, there's something that I wanted to share with the audience. So 2 days ago, when I was talking with Bob, he told me something that I felt I know I could relate to it. For example, he was telling me he has connects with so many people in the community, and whenever somebody comes up with a product, and they're very excited about it, and Bob appreciates it. But at the same time, he says it is just another plugin. What Bob really is interested is the person behind the plugin or the team behind the plugin or the company, because he knows that is what is most important. Or it is the people's ideas. Plugins come and go. Today it's a hit. Tomorrow somebody else overtakes it. But the people who that is what we have to look into, the stories we have to look into and share that with the community so that everybody benefits from it. I really wanted, I was so moved with that. I thought I should share this in the webinar today. I mean, thank you so much. And how exactly did you mold yourself into that in that stance where people are more important than the software?
It's I go back even before I got into WordPress because WordPress is so community oriented. And when you're online,
Yeah.
you have other challenges meeting people. Even back in my early days of running a marketing agency, it was more in person, local community type of thing. So there was that connection in person and building relationships. It comes naturally, or hopefully it comes naturally to people at some point because it did for me. It's one of the first things I've learned in business way back was to listen to people. It was like, don't get in their face. Don't, when you meet them the first time, shove, back then it was business cards, shove a business
Right.
card in somebody's face. Well, now, I mean, we're tempted. We want to share. We want to talk about ourselves because, yeah, it's not that you're just stuck on yourself, but that's human nature.
Right.
But I learned very quickly when I go into conversations to try to take time to listen and get to know that person because they have a lot to share too. So it just built, and when it got online it was even more so because I had the opportunity to meet all these people that I would never physically be next to them, maybe at a word camp or something I might be.
Right.
But I knew that, okay, I've got to, that person's still very important even though they're on the screen there. So
Right.
I can't just say, okay, this person does this product. Who is this person? Let me have a few conversations with them. So yeah, it after you get in there and start doing it more and more, it becomes almost this critical part of your
Right.
DNA that you gotta start connecting. You gotta start learning about people and hearing their stories and stuff. So yeah, it's just has been that way. And then once I got into it, it was like it just became natural, and it's just something that comes second nature to me.
Awesome. Awesome. So, if I have to ask you, you have been in the WooCommerce space for a long time now. Okay, maybe since its very beginning.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us about your journey a bit?
It's so I was introduced to WooCommerce only because I bought one of my first WordPress themes in 2008 or 2009 from Woo Themes when they were Woo Themes.
Right.
So I got to know that company quite well and some of the people there in the next few years. And then when WooCommerce came out in 2011, it was like, to me, it was kind of a no brainer because you almost go back to that thing. It's a relationship. They didn't say, hey, Bob, yeah, I've been working with them. So I said, hey, this has got to be good. I love their themes. This has got to be worth looking into. So I just started playing around with it. And I believe it wasn't too long, maybe a year after playing around with it, I put it on my site to sell consulting packages. It wasn't, a physical product, but I thought I'm going to put it on here and I'm going to start using it. And it's always been on my site ever since. So, for the technical part of things, there was always something to sell. I've never sold a physical product with WooCommerce. I've always sold workshop, you know, um, a fee to join one of my workshops, things like that. So I've done everything else with WooCommerce except actually sold a product and shipped it. I guess I need to do that one of these days. Still not sure what that's going to be, but yeah, through the years, I just started getting into it more and more. My mindset was not that. And in the early days, I did build websites. It wasn't, I want to start building e-commerce sites. I really didn't want to do that, but I wanted to understand it. I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to know what was going on in this space. And it just naturally, over a period of time, I just wrote more and more about it, got to know more of the people in it. And so I would just pivot my business every once in a while to pull in a little bit more WooCommerce, and eventually got to where I am today.
Right. 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 And so if you have, you have been in this WooCommerce space for a long time, and if you had to explain your role in the ecosystem, how would you do that to someone who don't know you already?
Explain my goals, like,
No, no, your role in the ecosystem. How would you define that?
um, boy, let's see. How would I define that? Uh, I'm
So if I'm a newcomer I'm very new to
Yeah, you're a
WooCommerce.
newcomer. Okay. You know what I think it is, okay, let's kind of step back because I was talking about the relationships. I think where we're at right now is okay, first of all, always remember, even when you're new, and especially in this space, relationships before partnerships. So
Right.
think of relationship first. Think of building that personal relationship, and that can be done 100 different ways, through social, through one-on-one conversations. You have to kind of get to know and let that person get to know you. And it's got to be, once you've built that relationship, then when you start looking at partnerships, I mean, okay, let's step back. Relationships. So you've got these relationships, and a lot of people call it strategic relationships where you really narrow on certain people. I'm on the mindset that I don't narrow in on certain people because I think they're it's almost this hang around with people that are successful. Well, if I hang around with people that are only successful, I'm in a bubble.
Right.
I don't see the big picture, and I don't need that. I don't need that to have any self-esteem or, anything for myself. So I don't do strategic relationships. I do them maybe down the road as far as, who are the people that really want to build something more. And it almost, again, comes naturally. It isn't something I sit on paper and say, these are the people that are going to be the important people in relationships, and these are going to be all the other people. I don't do that because that just doesn't work for me. So once you do that, then you got to start looking at those partnerships once you do that. Now, partnerships, and I'm going to go into this just a touch because and I don't want to make it a rant, but partnerships are a very odd thing right now because partnerships were always a lot of give and take. You build this thing and you mold it, and you know, there's that relationship, and there's a lot to do with it. And now everybody throws out that word easily.
Right.
And I get many emails, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to this, and some might go, "Ugh," that approach me, and that's the first thing they do is say, I want to build a partnership with you. And I'm like, who are you?
Right.
I
Right.
don't even know you. And then they'll say, I want to build a partnership. Will you join my affiliate?
Hmm.
And I'm like, I pause and I think, okay, how I define partnership is not how I define affiliate. Affiliate, I'm, I mean that. So let me just put this bluntly.
Yeah.
Affiliates to me is I'm kind of a salesperson for you on commission.
Right.
I sell something, I make some money. Hopefully I believe in the product, and that's how it works. That particular is a small piece of a partnership. It
Right.
shouldn't be what a partnership is based around. So that should come later. Yeah, yeah, do this. This is another option that in our partnership. So it's really getting that relationship and then starting to build on that partnership and finding those right people. You'll know what clicks. Just don't reach out
Right.
to everybody. Really plan these partnerships and really think of, okay, we are at a point now where we can start talking about some really serious give and take.
Right. I mean, that's a beautiful insight, and I think we have to give that a thought a bit because I must admit that strategic relationships are something, a term that we also use internally. I know somehow maybe it's an industry term, that's why we are using it, but I can relate to whatever you're saying, and I can 110% agree with what you've said right
Yeah.
now. But that brings me to another question. You said there are 100 different ways of building a relationship. Could you, maybe help us with some examples that maybe newcomers can get started with? Why just newcomers? I mean, people like us can get started with
Yeah.
within the
It-
community.
when when you okay, so there's this thing in the WordPress space. I'm going to use a WordPress space, which envelops WooCommerce because a lot of the
Right.
people are the same, kind of at the same mindset. Is that there's a lot of influencers or big people or stars, rock stars, but however you want to label them. And we always tend to think, oh, we need to connect with those because they're the ones that have the audience and stuff. Well, you can you know try to reach out to them. A lot of them are very open, but if
Right.
you just do it very blatantly, like a big sales pitch, like, hey, so and so, I'd love you to write about my extension. Well, wait a minute. Now, where did this come from? So you have to step back. Start building relationships at any level with anyone. Anyone that shows a bit of interest in you, start showing a bit of interest in them. And it doesn't matter if you look at their Twitter and they have 10 followers and they follow 20 people. That does not, I mean, we measure too many things when we start doing that. We start thinking, how popular, what will this person do for me? Just start thinking it in a way of, there's interest there. We've had this conversation on Twitter. We've had this great back and forth. Maybe there's a point where you say, hey, would you like to jump on Zoom? Let's just kind of connect and go in with no expectations. And that's another thing I learned in 27 years of business. When I used to go to these in-person events, and I'm saying this for a reason, is people used to always say, okay, go in there with all these goals, Bob. You're going to talk to this many people. You're going to make this many connections. You're going to do this. And I'm like, so you go into this and you're stressed because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I've got to accomplish this thing, meeting this person for the very first time. And the minute I told myself, and didn't listen to any of those pros out there that told me that, to walk into anything without any expectations, that's when things started happening naturally. It was like the conversation just went. And maybe they go into something else, or maybe that person you think, well, they're not the right fit, or, we probably won't get into business together somehow, but you never know. That person may remember you and say, wow, that was a great conversation. We had that initial little bit of chat. We talked back and forth on social. Now I'm talking with somebody over here. Hey, I know somebody you should connect with. It's a time. It takes time.
Yeah.
You have to be patient. You have to really, yeah. And it has to be, and it's that whole thing in WordPress of helping people. That's the biggest way. And that's not like, here, I have this issue. Well, my product can solve that. Well, yeah, maybe your product can solve it, but help them with other issues or help them with other things. And that can really open up doors. So you got to take any little opening and just figure out the best way to approach that without feeling like you're barging in there and saying, hey, let's start a relationship right now. I'm ready for you. It's got to be something that grows a little bit over time.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thankful. I mean, that was totally insightful, and I think our team has a lot to learn from it. All right. I mean, let's move away from WooCommerce and WordPress for a second, to a more broader subject maybe. We are currently living in this very interesting time for e-commerce and e-learning in particular. So do you think this, customers shift towards e-commerce is permanent, and does that affect only the normal retailers, and whether that affects, WooCommerce or e-commerce store builders like us?
Yeah. I'm going to take this two approaches. What is from my own personal experience, and one from listening to people, because I'm somebody that gets my expertise through osmosis through other people. So I talk to a lot of people, interview a lot of people, and they're smarter than me a lot of times. So I listen to them. But personally, I have started ordering online more. I did before, but I'm ordering online all the time now. I don't do groceries because geographically where we live, that doesn't work. But I do just about everything. I started even doing some clothes, which I never did before. And personally, I can tell you this is going to be long-term no matter what happens. I am not going, because I am not a store shopper. I hate shopping. I don't like going in stores. It's like, I don't care if I'm scared of what's going on right now or I'm not scared. I just don't like it. So for me personally, it's a done deal. It's no matter what changes here, I'll probably even buy more online. What people are telling me is that, yeah, it's long term. It really is, because I think humans are by nature, we get these new habits. And there's a lot of people now that are suddenly comfortable ordering online where they weren't before because they were forced into the situation. And that's not necessarily the best way to,
Right.
anything happen. I mean, and then there's a lot of people that are going to, I think, when they're at that business inception point where they're starting to think about it, because unfortunately all the businesses have had to close, which has been a dramatic
Yeah.
impact on a lot of people. And I just, I feel for them. And it's a easier said than done to just tell them, hey, jump online and start selling. Some of them it's a natural segue, other times it's very challenging. It takes a lot of, I mean, you can kind of do it in one sense, yeah, easily, but there's a lot of other pieces to it. So I do feel for them, but I think a lot of people now are going to, from here on in, and I think it's not going to be lost on, no matter, when this gets better, gets over with, because I feel like we're kind of still in the middle of this, is that they're going to start looking at, what I want to start a business, and they're going to have that element of e-commerce in their brain a lot more moving ahead. They're going to think, hey, should I probably should do this both ways. I should think of a way to do it. And then there's people that I think that are just going to permanently be ingrained because their experience, what they saw happen, that say, I'm going to start something and it needs to be online. I'm not doing something, I'm not looking at getting a shop or building down the
Right.
road or, renting a place. I'm going to do it. And then a lot of the companies that have employees, I mean, we can see from what's happened how many are saying we have decided this is permanently, we're going distributed, we're not,
Right.
we're ending. And all those are consequences which are going to be interesting for economies in every country, because now we have all this office space that's closed.
So,
So there's going to have to be a lot of shifting done.
yeah.
And I really think it's opened up a lot of opportunities. And I hate to
Right.
say that, because sometimes I'm thinking, oh, that's terrible in a sense because of everything that has happened to so many people. But at the same time, it's, there's hope that there will be a other opportunities that open even for people that have, really been devastated in one way or another. So I think it's gonna it's permanently changed it, and it's just set that mindset and habits for people.
All right. All right. Awesome. So, I mean, that's the same hope that keeps us going on. So, anyway, um, we have around 18 participants. Guys, I would like to remind you that you can drop your questions in the chat box at any time. So, Bob will be answering them at the end. So, ask away. Anyway, Bob, let's dive into, the WooCommerce ecosystem now. Both of us are a part of it. You are an influencer, and we at Wisdom provide services and we build products based on WooCommerce. What would you advise, what would your advice be to, say, someone who is just starting out or who is planning to start a business with WooCommerce, or they have an existing one? How do you scale it? Any advice for that particular?
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm gonna do a little self-promotion here and just tell anyone that a lot of the things I'm gonna be talking about now, also I did a podcast with Chris Lemma,
Yeah.
and it just came out today. It's on dothewoo.io. And I asked him some of these questions. We talked a lot about this and how people can enter the space. So he has a lot. I may even steal a little bit of his ideas because I just, heard Chris tell me those ideas. But also, I'd encourage you to listen to it because he had a lot of good stuff. I think and one of the questions I had for him is, there's this thing where everybody wants to get online now.
Yeah.
So we look at it, you look at it as entering this space, and maybe you had planned on doing this already prior to this, but you're entering a space that has the challenge of all these crazy people that want it here and want it now. And they're going to want, and if you haven't been in doing a lot of WooCommerce, I mean, I when I do basic stuff with WooCommerce, it's
Right.
amazing how much I have to go through. So you're going to really have to wrap your brain around how to build an e-commerce site, because it's a lot different. I mean, you of anybody, Wisdom Labs knows this,
Yeah.
is that it's something you just can't pick up. Sure, you can maybe do a simple little thing, but people are going to start wanting stuff,
Right.
and they're going to want unusual stuff that maybe didn't come along initially if they'd done this a year ago. So you need to be prepared and really, if you're getting into this, really looking at those projects and asking lots and lots and lots of questions.
Right.
One of the giveaways or things I'm going to give from the podcast was, and I thought this was really interesting because I asked Chris Lema the same thing about product sellers,
Right.
building some product for WooCommerce. And I just, I thought, well, I could say, hey, people, you have to listen to the podcast, but I don't want to do that. I'm not going to tease you for that because this was so interesting. And he said one of the first things he said is to have, when you're building something, do not build it for developers, build it for users and merchants. And the reason he said, and it's true, and I mean, we can all relate to this, is that a developer has a mindset of, well, you're, there's this plugin, but I can probably code that in.
Right.
Now, everybody's going to have a different approach to it. Some it's better to put the plugin in, some of them will code it in. So they're not really your customer. So when you're starting new, especially if you're thinking of a product, you should know your customers, and likely that you have that in mind, the merchants. I mean, as many product makers that I've talked to in the WooCommerce space, I can really see that they're looking at what I'm doing now is more of a, communicating, learning from their peers, connecting with them versus getting their product in front of the merchants. So that's really important to remember is, if you're just at that starting point, to do that. And don't, as many times as I've screwed up in my business over the years, and I've done many things that failed, and I admit it, and we learn from them, and that's cool.
Right.
And failure is not bad unless it,
Absolutely.
kills you, or you just, it devastates you. Is that don't jump on the e-commerce bandwagon because everybody, take it step by step, really look at it, because it is a whole different animal when it comes to, I mean, I'm not even a developer and I understand that part just from having talked to people. So don't do it just on a whim, really, really understand what is going on. And there's so many resources out there. I mean, there's, yeah, you can go on Facebook groups and you can go in, other chats, and I mean, they're fine. They're fine. Sometimes you just end up down some rabbit hole, or, don't depend on those because, you're just getting all kinds of opinions from a billion different people. I mean, the WooCommerce Slack is really, if you're just starting to get into it, just join the WooCommerce Slack, because I mean, I go in there and I'm just in a daze most of the time because I don't know what, 90% of these people are talking about. They're putting blocks of code down. And I'm just like, what is this stuff? But get in there and see what they're talking about and what people are. I mean, you could learn a lot in there, start wrapping your brain around that. And yeah, I think I think it's a good move. I kind of segued into the e-commerce space. It's obviously where everything is going. There's just as much competition out there. So you got to realize that you're going to have to build it up. You're going to have to do it a lot on that.
Yeah.
The people, just don't build it and sit there and say, hey, I'm a WooCommerce. I build WooCommerce stores. Everybody come and see me. No, we all know that's not going to work. So you have to, and if you've been in the WordPress space already, I mean, you've got a good part of it, a chunk of it of understanding. So you're already in that realm, and it's just adding that other piece onto it and deciding, and another, and something that wasn't mentioned, or I haven't had a lot, I've had a few people say, is be open to, if you're going to get into if you're really going to seriously get into it, sure, you can say, I'm going to become a WooCommerce expert, but there are other options. I mean, BigCommerce, there's Shopify. Understand those other options, because you're going to be constantly asked about that. Somebody's going to always come to you and say, WooCommerce or Shopify, WooCommerce or Shopify. Be prepared, do research, listen to what people are talking about on that, and really understand it because, likely at some point there's going to be some option where you need to say, you need to let it go and say, okay, obviously the choice for them is not WooCommerce. And you
Right.
got to be open. Don't become a WooCommerce, fanatic where you're just ramming it down everybody's throat. You got to remember what that customer needs.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that's a practice that we also often delve into, where unless it's the right choice, we don't really pitch WooCommerce just because we do WooCommerce. And that's what really sticks with the customer. And they go ahead, though we don't have an engagement, if they have any referrals, they do refer us because they know, okay, we are the ones who are giving the right advice and not pushing the products and services that we have to sell. So
Right.
absolutely, I agree to it 100%. But you mentioned, your podcast, you mentioned talking to so many other people. So that brings me to one of the favorite questions that I have for today. We obviously love the do the Woo podcast here at Wisdom Labs, and you have had so many interesting conversations with lots of successful entrepreneurs out there, and the key people in the WooCommerce space in particular. So, what are some of the best insights that you have derived out of these conversations, and what has stuck with you for a long time now?
It's interesting because I asked this question to my three co-hosts. I had each one of my co-hosts, and
Yeah.
that's Jonathan Wold from WooCommerce, Brad Williams from Web Dev Studios, and Mendel Curlin from Nexus. And a lot of their answers resonated with me. And one of them was, I wish I could remember which one of the three said this, but one thing I've learned at talking to them is WooCommerce, a lot of people in this space have a real desire to make things happen and I mean, and I don't want to throw out the word passion, but they have this energy. It's like they're ready to get in there and dig into things. They're not just, oh, what do I do? I don't want to touch this. They're ready to go in there and rip this thing apart and try. And so there's this determination that I see it over and over. And a lot of the people we talk with, yeah, it's exactly that. And I told them, I said, whoever said it, I said, I'm going to steal this because this is so true. This is the thing. Uh, Probably the other thing is that some of them didn't really always think they could do it. They thought e-commerce was a scary big animal, and it kind of is in a sense. I mean, this was how I thought about it way back. I thought, whoa, this is overwhelming. I wouldn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. And to be honest, I probably still wouldn't, but I'm not a developer. But it's something that, don't let the concept of it scare you. Don't let and I think a lot of them said they were at a point where, like, I can't do this,
Okay.
or I was really kind of hesitant to do it because it seemed like the monster. I think one of them called it the monster. She looked at WooCommerce as a monster, and now she's doing WooCommerce sites and very successful at it because she just went for it because she had the skills in place. It was just taking it to that next piece, and that was WooCommerce and understanding that and using it. So I think it's just a lot of people that are excited about what they're doing. They all have different stories.
Right.
A lot of One of the things, the last thing I'll mention is that a lot of these product people that created products created it out of their own need and then ended up selling it. So it became a need that they either had to have themselves or a client had. And then they started seeing the same thing being asked by client, by client, by client. And then they said, well, obviously, this is, they built it, they did everything, and they said, man, this might be actually something other people need. So they turned it into a product, sold it, and it became, maybe not always became wildly successful, but they were able to, make it fairly successful at different levels. So
Right.
that is another thing, is building out of, I've seen a lot of them, They don't just think of this thing off the top of their head and say, I'm going to put it out there and sell it to the public. It came out of, and that's where probably agencies have a lot of an advantage to that, is that they're going to see those needs. And if they see them over and over and there isn't a solution out there, or there is, but it just doesn't quite have those two or three other things, that's
Right.
something to really keep in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how we ventured into products. So originally Wisdom was a services company, and we saw that, this particular feature is something people are looking for, and we are getting a lot of requests out for them. And, we all keep blogging, and, whatever we do, we write about it, and people are interested in it. They come back to us. And that's how we ventured into products, and it's going on pretty well for us. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So agencies do have that advantage because we are talking to the end users and what they
Yeah,
need.
exactly.
All right, all right. I think we are getting some questions across social media. Samrat is sending me those messages. We'll take that up right after, I got a couple of more questions for you. So one important thing, obviously, that's probably the theme of the webinar right now. You really know that, that's a big advantage out there for WooCommerce, for the WooCommerce community. How do you think the community could benefit from connecting each other? Something I
From
think
what?
with connecting each other, like you are
Oh,
bringing
connecting
together the
each
Woo
other. Okay.
builders, right?
Okay.
So what is the advantage that they get by
Yeah.
connecting with each
So yeah, so I'm looking at, so kind of my focus is, on the builders, and that's what we're talking about, or WooCommerce businesses. And I think the benefit is, one thing is that, first of all, we're learning from everybody. And my approach, I've taught people stuff forever and ever, and I don't really think of my spot as a learning spot in the sense of, you come to my site and learn code. No, you don't do it. There's a lot of opportunities to do that. But I think that connecting, what ends up happening is there's that not physical connection, but more of a connection of listening. The benefit of it is hearing other people that have been there and done that. And it makes you, sometimes you need that little boost, especially if you're in a spot and you're kind of stuck in your business, or you're thinking about doing this or that, and you can listen. And whether it's on my podcast or talking to somebody, sometimes there's those moments that you just, and I think it's again that listening thing, listening to others, and suddenly you hear, oh, that's exactly how I felt. And, I'm not alone, but this person pulled through this way. That is huge. And that's kind of a human nature type of thing anyway. But I think that builders get so, they kind of get in their own little space. And that's true. They're in their code bubble. That's it. I mean, I get it, and a lot of them are very introverted.
other? Right.
So hearing other people is a big part of it. It's not always having to just feel like, oh, I have to just constantly be talking to people back and forth, because that just makes me nervous. That makes me uncomfortable. I'm not into that. So that's one way of connecting people. Everything I've done is on the site is looking at, how do I benefit the person I'm talking to or whatever, and how does that help them to connect the community. So you look at it in a lot of different external ways, and it's something I could talk about a long time, because it's there's just so many benefits, because once you start building those relationships, and I think it's important to also know, and especially for people that are new to doing business for themselves, and this is the biggest thing. And you always say, not competition. You don't want to. There shouldn't be any competition or whatever. And in a sense, what you got to look at is, I've got to be connected to my peers, my people that are doing the same thing I'm doing. Sure, we're competitors in the sense that, yeah, we're all doing this. We're trying to sell ourselves. But if I'm not connected to them, I'm just going to I'm going to lose something. I'm going to lose that benefit of being able to every once in a while shoot something off somebody, uh, say, my site, even I'm, one of the things I hope to do is, if somebody says, wow, I've been wanting to talk to this person, I don't want to sell them. I want to just, everything they've said has resonated with me. But, okay, well, let me see if I can connect you to, and you can maybe start with the conversation. So that's the perception you want to take. Is what's important about it is feeding off of each other and not just learning, but understanding what each other's thinking. And you really can't get into the community until you get into their brains. So that's that listening part. What is so and so thinking about this? What is so and so thinking about this? And okay, that makes sense, and it tells you a little bit more about that person. And it may be like, yeah, that is somebody I want to eventually get to know, so I'm going to figure out a way to do it.
All right, that gives us, what to expect from Bob's new venture. So I hope that everyone is excited about it. And Bob, I think that was something. My next question about: is there anything that you would like to put out in the world about how they should get to you, how they should connect with you, and how they can be a part of Do the Who?
It's I'd love to just say my email's open and whatever. Your approach to me is always, I'm always open. It's like Twitter. My DMs are open. I left them open because I did. And sometimes, some people get on there and want to connect, and sometimes they do it in the very wrong way because they try to sell me right away, or they say, how can you help me? It's like, wait a minute. Okay, let's step back about 29 steps, and then we'll maybe get to that point. So I mean, they can do it in Twitter. I'm Slack. I'm on WooCommerce Slack. Anybody can direct message me there. It's that approach. I don't blow people off unless they're being basically rude. I'm a very mellow guy. I'm very open. I like to meet people. I only have so much time, so be patient. It's always, be patient when you send anybody, try to talk to anybody, however you're doing it. It's like, don't sit on Facebook and see they're active and think, oh, this is a perfect time. Message and come on. I know you're on Facebook. Come on, answer me. Well, maybe they're, just have Facebook open. So to reach out to me, you got to have that expectation that I talked about earlier, is that you don't expect anything. You don't have any goals. You don't know where it's going to lead, because that's
Right.
how when I respond to somebody, I don't know how it's going to lead. I've responded to some people kind of a little bit, we just kind of, volley back and forth a little bit. It's very lighthearted and whatever, but don't really. And then, 6 months down the road, something happens again and it brings us together. Oh, I remember we were talking. So it never hurts, as long as you're not approaching me or anyone and just saying, let's chat. Why do you want to chat? What's the point of chatting? Maybe we don't need to get on Zoom for 20 minutes because, you may not have the time. I may not have the time. So I'm open, through the site. There's contact. There's Bob at bobwp.com. I mean, most people figure out my email. I'm always open to hear from people. And where that will go from there, I can't tell you. It's not going to be a guarantee, and it may be, I may not get back to you till later. Maybe a few days later, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I thought about this a little bit. Let's go from there. So yeah, so I like to be available, but don't set your expectations too high. And also, I don't know everything in the world either. So I may tell
Right.
you, this is a better person to talk to, or this is a better site to go to, because I'm pretty stupid when it comes to that.
That's wonderful. I mean, you don't really believe in planned relationships. Relationships happen. That's the message
Yeah.
that you have. So wonderful, wonderful. So I think with that, everyone, that was the end of the chat with Bob, and now the floor is open for questions that you may have. So you can drop them in the chat. And I think our team is also monitoring the social media where we are live right now on Facebook. There are a couple of questions that I have. Just a second. Um, Nisarg says, how do we overcome this challenge to content? But I think, Nisarg, you put that message somewhere during our conversation, so I don't really have the context to ask you that. If you are online right now, could you elaborate your question a bit?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you that was even a so to how do I'm sorry, repeat that. I didn't.
No, no, it's not really. I mean, Nisarg had put a question in between our conversation, and I think the question is a little incomplete because we cannot really get back to the context. I'm not sure at what point he has put the question. So if Nisarg is online, he could just give us that context.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, you're talking to that person.
I'm talking to that person. I can see them
Okay.
online. So, and meanwhile, I have some other questions as well on Facebook. So um, this is a question from Fran, I guess, and he's written, I'm a web developer. I develop websites using WooCommerce integration. Most customers complained about integration of Facebook and Instagram on WooCommerce. Have WooCommerce improved in this perspective? I believe that WooCommerce should necessarily have user-friendly and smooth integration of Facebook, Instagram, and other social apps. So do you happen to have any idea about it?
You know, I'll be honest. I absolutely have no idea. I've heard a lot of people. I will say from experience, I've seen a lot of people rumbling about that. That there has been a lot of issues, and having dealt with companies that I know that have direct integrations into Facebook and a lot of these social things, they are constantly it's headaches for them because of the integration. Because yeah, Facebook changes, it every all the time, and LinkedIn does, and Twitter, and so yeah, I know that Skyverge purchased the Facebook integration. I think the kind of the official one on WooCommerce, and they've been working on it diligently to make it work because I know that there was a lot of issues. So they took it over, or maybe they expanded on it. Now where it's at right now, yeah, I could ramble on, but basically, I have seen a lot of people talking in different groups about issues with that, and I'm not quite sure where it's at right now. And I'm sure somebody somewhere has got to be working on it, but yeah, I'm just not sure I have the perfect answer for that one.
All right, all right. So yeah, Nisarg has answered. He says, how do we overcome the COVID challenge through content?
Through content, COVID challenge through content. So, I'm kind of wondering in what sense, as far as putting out content, or how do you address COVID within your content? I'm a little unsure of what. I mean, content to me, I'm a content person, so it's basically, I'm all for content. So I think the challenge, right, it's not so much a challenge, it's an opportunity because you have more people online, so people are communicating and using different ways to communicate. I'm not even sure if I'm answering the question correctly, but I think that it's actually not a challenge so much as it is too many opportunities, because I mean, we're all going online, but then it can be overwhelming too. Yeah, everybody's putting everything online, which could be the challenge. So you're competing. So you have to make sure your content is original, unique, and draws the people, and work on the people. Don't try to, we have the world at our fingertips, but don't always try to get new people in. Keep to those existing customers and connections, and build on that. I don't even know if that was the right answer.
I think that was because now I get another clarification on the question that it's about driving traffic to websites. So I think you answered it.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah. And it's just constantly I go back to that helping people. You just gotta and share it, but share it nicely. But really work on those people that are your fans already, and get them to, to get the word out too. Don't just, blasted out everywhere, expecting all these new people, because it's a challenge. I've been doing this for 13 years, so it takes some time. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's going to take you 13 years, but it does take time.
It does. It does. I mean, we are getting tons of technical queries on WooCommerce. I want to tell you, people
Oh,
decided not to
that's it. And they're asking the wrong dude, man. I'm sorry. It's maybe we could transfer all these over to the Slack WooCommerce channel.
Yeah, yeah,
And
we can do
no,
that, and or we could help you. Definitely, we'll be reaching out to
yeah,
these people later on, and we are more than
yeah.
happy to help you guys. One another question that we received on chat is, I recently started blogging about WooCommerce. Do you have any advice for new bloggers?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. Let me think of what, because it's a tough thing to do. You long term, you're going to find your own groove. You're going to find the thing that clicks with audiences. What are you, first of all, why is this person blogging about WooCommerce? There's got to be a goal. So everything you write about has to address that goal, whether you're selling, you're trying to drive people to, I mean, you're probably driving your people to your website, but why? Why? If you're an agency, yeah, it should talk about the successes and what you're doing, and useful stuff, and give them help where they remember you later on when they need something else. Yeah, well, so and so has helped me through these 5 different issues I had. So you really depends on your audience and what you are why you're blogging. If you're blogging for affiliate income only, which a lot of people do, it's a what do I want to say? It's a tough row, because a lot of people do that. You again got to make it very useful and make it where somebody reads it and they don't think you're just selling it. You're actually helping them. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you. Namrata here is asking, when are you visiting India?
Oh man. I barely make it within the United States. Let me tell you, my wife and we talked about it a few years ago. So I mentioned it to somebody, then everybody was, oh, when you coming? And I'm like, oh, why did I even say something? I don't know. I wish I could promise. I mean, now I can use the excuse of COVID,
Yeah.
but yeah, it'll have to be a while, but that's an easy way out. I really don't know. I don't travel as much as I used to. I'm kind of at a point in my life where a lot of travel kills me, and it's just, I don't have the energy for it, but I never say never. I've learned that in my life too, to never say, oh, I'll never get there. You just don't know. I just don't have a day picked out yet.
All right, all right. But we do hope that you would make it to India someday, where our teams can meet you. I think that's about it with the questions that we have. Let me just check once again. All right. Bob, I mean, is there anything else that you would want to put forth in front of the audience about your new venture?
I just I think there's just a lot of opportunity there, and I can't, I don't want to go through every little aspect of it, but do poke around, poke at the links and see what's going on, because there's different ways to get some exposure. There's different ways to get connected. I have my friends that do the woo. I'm not here to sell that. That's just one piece of it. But I think it's, I just more or less encourage people to first just start listening to stuff on there and listening to people talking, because that's where you're going to get the most. And that's my whole point of my site, is to share that with everyone. The other pieces, hopefully you'll discover the growth of it's going to be very organic. So who knows what I'll be coming up with. I'll just throw out a couple things here that, and I'll actually throw out 3 things. So one is, and this is something that, hopefully is a benefit for them too, is I have a news section. So if you have any news. And I'm not talking a new product or service. I'm talking about something in your agency that's fairly, if you're, been recognized in your country, in your city, and whatever, I've got a place to talk about it. So I'm going to be doing that. Second thing is if you are an agency that has built a big brand, built on a recognizable brand, what I've done is I've got this Big Brands on Woo, it's called. And so what I basically do is I'm going to, and I'm talking about something that a lot of people can relate to, not everybody around the world, but, a fairly large client that a lot of, it may be a common name for some people. What I'll do is if you're able to, and I'm sure there's contractual reasons that some people couldn't do this, but if you were able to, I'd have you on a video for 3-4 minutes and ask you just a couple questions about it. So, just, hey, and we might even talk about what we talk about, beforehand, because I want to throw something out and you can't share it. I'm not going to say, oh, the secret of it. And, can you tell us this about this company or something? So we'll do this video, and then the second part of that is that those videos will be on there, and then it'll be able to be used by the community for the next time when somebody says, hey, tell me about this WooCommerce, and you have to convince a larger company into using it. You can go look through there and say, hey, did you know so-and-so's on WooCommerce? Did you know so-and-so in your industry's on WooCommerce? And they'll kind of, so I'm giving you a little bit of, something to go in with the client. That's one opportunity. And then I have another one, which I was going to say a third one, and I'm totally blown out of my mind. Let me think through my stuff here. Well, those two right off the top of my head come out. And yeah, just look around. You'll see some other ways to get to products. If you do have a new product and service, this is something that I've dealt with a long time. And I'm not talking about a major update or anything. I'm talking about something that's very specific to WooCommerce. Is if you do put out a new product or service, submit it through my news. What I'm not doing is I won't do a post just on your news thing, but I put out this thing called New Product Snapshot. And it's going to be a post that goes out every once in a while with several new products and services in the space. So you get a little paragraph and a link to it. I'm not going to use your affiliate link. I don't have any affiliate links on Do the Woo. I'm just trying to help people and get the word out. So that's a way for you to get your name out there a little bit. And secondly, again, it's a tool for everybody else, because if you are building a product and you follow those stream of posts, you can look to see what's coming out, what's new in the space. And if something looks fairly competitive to yours, you can say, but they're not doing what I'm going to be doing here. So cool. I'm good with that. So it's another way to keep you informed and keep you on top of things, but then give you a little bit of exposure.
That sounds pretty exciting. And I think, we all have a lot of, opportunity to collaborate and, help each other, where ultimately this community is what it is known for. Okay, just going through my last bunch of messages just to see if there are anything.
And somebody said there, no worries, they'll be happy to visit me and say, I usually do make it to WordCamp US. That's the one I traditionally make it to when that comes back. So if you're ever in a future WordCamp US, and you can expect I'll be there. And I spend my entire time in the vendor area. You can always find me, and if I'm talking to somebody, just push your way in and let me know, because I like to talk to people.
And because you're always talking to people, and I've seen that. So, all right, wonderful. I think we are anyway nearing towards the closing time, and that concludes our first webinar today. I want to thank everyone for taking out the time and joining us, and special thanks to you, Bob, for talking to us. It's been a wonderful pleasure speaking with you today.
Well, thank you. This was exciting to be on your debut webinar, and yeah, I certainly appreciate the invite and appreciate our friendship and our partnership with Wisdom Labs. So, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.